Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Flags in a Gym, a podcast dedicated to all things color guard. My name is Eric. I'm your host and resident color guard nerd. And for today's episode, I am entering my Miss Mojo era and I am doing my very first top 10 list. This one's going to be covering the most iconic shows in WGI history. I'm sure to ruffle some feathers on this one, so sit back, relax, and let's talk some color guard. Okay, welcome back, everybody. It's just me today, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. But before we get into the list, I do have a few disclaimers I want to just kind of put out there. This is not a top 10 best shows of all time list. That's not what this is. Many of these shows didn't win. At least three of them weren't even top five. So this is not about the best shows of all time. This is about iconic, memorable, notable, or impactful shows from across the activity. Also, I have not seen every single color guard show in history, but I've seen a lot. I have. So I'm sure someone out there is going to be annoyed that I didn't include this show or that show. I get it. And you can let me know. Let me know your opinions. I love hearing from you. Just I ask that you do it respectfully. Shoot me an email. You can put it in the comments on the post. You can send me a DM on Instagram. I love hearing your opinions. And like I said in the intro, I'm probably going to ruffle some feathers on this one because you're going to think such and such should have been higher or this one is too high. So let's get into it. Let's have some fun. So, number 10, Aimachi 2004. Now, I know. Before you start saying you don't remember that show or what's so iconic about 2004 Aimachi, blah, 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 blah. This one I included because it's more kind of grabbing at a collection than a specific show. But I chose 2004 because that was the first year they brought out the batons. If you were there, you remember it was championships in San Diego. Aimachi comes on the floor and they're doing their thing. You know, they're putting on a cute show and the audience is loving it. And then about a third of the way through the show, from behind the back curtain, out steps this boy, this guy. Sorry, I hate using boy and girl when I'm talking about adults, but I know it's kind of like the default when we're talking color guard. So I will continue to use boy and girl, but trust me, it's just because that's kind of how we always kind of talk in color guard. But anyway, out comes this boy with a baton and just goes hog wild on the floor. And people are losing their minds. You know, there's an old school saying of people throwing babies at them. You know, we were throwing babies. It was absolutely crazy. And they took WGI by storm and became the biggest crowd favorite. And it wasn't their first year at WGI either, but this was the year that they shook up the activity with something new. I mean, everyone ate it up, including me. I was all about it. And then each year they came back because they came about every 3 years or so because they had to fly from Japan. And I cannot imagine that cost. I mean, just talking to some groups about what it costs, like to get there from California or Florida, I can't imagine flying from Japan with a color guard. But anyway, they were on their 3 to 4 year cycle, and every year they came back. They just came back with more. I mean, 2007 they came back and medaled, and that is probably my favorite show right now. I mentioned this in the listener Q&A. 2007 Aimachi is amazing. And then you had go fast forward to 2015 with 1,000 Cranes, which so many people love. So I thought about picking that one, but then I'm like, why don't we go back to where it all started with 2004 when we started with the baton, when they found something, they created something to put a spark into WGI, and that's exactly what they did. It became their trademark, and it even sparked other color guards to start using batons as well. Cadets in the summer after 2004, so I believe it was the 2004 summer, might have been 2005, but they had a baton twirler out there that they were trying to feature, like the guy from Aimachi. It's why I included it on the list. The show itself, 2004, isn't that iconic, but when you were taking it as a collective and kind of what the impact they had on the activity is why I put it in at number 10. Moving on to number 9, we have Miamisburg High School from 1991 with their Candle in the Wind show. Now, this is a guard that has been in Scholastic World probably longer than I've been alive. That's a lie because Scholastic World didn't exist, but it feels like it. I mean, Miamisburg has been in Scholastic World, I mean, since the class pretty much was created. And they have put out so many amazing shows, especially in the mid to late 90s. I mean, when they were at the top of Scholastic World, but knew I wanted to include this specific show because of how different it was. It was absolutely incredible. It was a tribute to Marilyn Monroe, and they used the titular song by Elton John, Candle in the Wind, that he ended up redoing when Princess Diana passed. He re recorded it and changed some lyrics around. And what makes this show so iconic is the near 2-minute silent feature it has. Like the show opens and there's the piano opening of the song, and then the soundtrack just cuts out. And then it's like 2 minutes of pure silence. They have rifle work, they have flag work, they have a full-on flag feature, and it is practically flawless. You have to remember they're doing the whole thing in silence. Absolutely amazing. And it just highlighted the training on the kids. It is absolutely exquisite, as we'd expect from Miamisburg. I mean, come on, let's be real. It's a Miamisburg Guard. You expect them to be incredible. And, the video is out on YouTube. You have to watch it. And yes, it's from 1991. So, yes, they're in like the ugly, gaudy prom dresses kind of look. And they've got the big hair and the big makeup. It was the style at the time. They were hot. They're still hot. But don't be hating on the costuming because it is 35 years old at this point. Wow. This show's 35 years old. That is crazy. That is absolutely crazy. And it is still amazing. The guard got a standing ovation halfway through the performance. As soon as the silent feature ended and the soundtrack continued and it started back up, the entire audience gave them a huge standing ovation, well deserved. And then like the chef's kiss at the end of the show, they had one performer, a young girl, who had platinum blonde hair. Now she may have dyed it, it may have been a wig, I don't know. It was the 90s. It could have just been her natural hair color. But before the end of the show, she goes behind the prop, and there's a prop. I should probably see what the prop looks like. In the back corner, there's a little stage, and then there's a big, just white backdrop, and it has the silhouette of Marilyn Monroe from the 7 Year Itch. And everybody knows the iconic Marilyn Monroe white dress. She's standing over the air vent, and her dress is fluttering up, and she reaches down kind of in front of her crotch area to hold it down. That everybody knows that moment. So about 85% of the way through the show, this girl goes behind the prop, and then at the very end of the show, she comes out in a white dress, walks up on the stage, and she's got this bleach blonde hair just like Marilyn, and then there's a fan in the stage that she's standing on, and it flutters her dress up, and she's standing there posing, and it is amazing. It is iconic, and that's why it's on this list at number 9. I had to include this one because it was absolutely incredible and I love it. And there's so many great shows that I couldn't be higher, and I think there are so many that are more iconic, but anybody who's seen this show, especially the people who were there, will remember this. I wasn't there. I was only 9 years old at the time, but I was raised in my color guard life. I was raised on these older shows, so I have a great respect for older color guard. So, check this one out. I highly recommend number 9, Miamisburg High School, Candle in the Wind. Moving on to number 8, we have another iconic 90s color guard. And this color guard was only out for about 4 or 5 years, but huge impact on the sport, huge name, and that is Escapade. And I'm going with 1993. Now, I chose 93 because of the incredible soundtrack and just the pure energy and iconic moments of the end of the world section. This was REM music. It starts with Drive by REM. It's kind of a slower take. They're in flannels and headbands and tight pants and very streetwear of the time. And they're just dancing and moving. And then about halfway through the show, maybe a third of the way into the show, it switches into It's the End of the World as We Know It by REM, which is that super fast tongue twistery song that you always hear that one person trying to sing at karaoke, that one drunk person. You're like, why are you doing this? I mean, at least it's better than that drunk lady who's always trying to do Whitney. And if you've been to karaoke, you know exactly what I'm talking about is that one drunk lady that gets up and thinks she's Whitney Houston and she ain't. But moving on. The staging and the velocity is like the trademark highlight of this show. Like we said, it starts slow and then it gets ramped up to a 10. And then we get to the flag feature at the end where they just ramp it up to like a 12. I mean, the audience was going absolutely bananas. Many people who were there have said that you couldn't hear the soundtrack at the flag feature because the crowd was just that loud. Like they were just losing their minds. And I absolutely love this show. 95 is actually probably my favorite escapade show, but I felt 93 was way more iconic. We cannot forget the iconic triple turn saber soloist on a tournament, a tournament, a tournament of lies, right? She hit a turn on every single one. Probably the best underbody under a toss I've ever seen when we're talking turnarounds. I mean, just incredible. There's a reel of it on my Instagram if you want to go see it, or you can go to YouTube and watch the entire show, which I recommend to do as well. And of course, she bapped the absolute crap out of it. She was a competitive twirler. Her name was Riche, and she was a competitive twirler. And, we always talk about how it was common to get twirlers into color guard by putting a saber in their hands and like, here, spin this instead. And they could throw it up in the air, it spin around 5 times, and they would spin around 3 or 4 times underneath it, no problem, because that's what they were used to. But absolutely incredible show. So many huge names are in this show. I mean, there are so many people that you can just it's like a who's who now of today's color guard that are in this show. I mean, Michael Gaines was the director. Hello. Rosie Miller Queen was in the show. Hello. I mean, just this is absolutely iconic. Let's move on to number 7. Coming in at number 7, we have Center Grove High School, 1997. I was going to make you hang on that one. This was the Ode to Joy show. And to me, this show is perfection. It has everything. And what makes this show iconic definitely has to be the ending section, especially with Homegirl just laying down on the ground during the climax of the soundtrack. Like, you're getting this big swell of music and you're watching and you're like, what's this girl? What's this girl gonna do? What's she gonna do? What's she gonna do? And then all of a sudden she just lays down on the floor and they just show her huffing and puffing because of what they did prior. And it's just like, wow, this is crazy cool. And she's laying there for what, like 8, maybe, yeah, it's probably about 8 counts. And then in comes the rest of the color guard from the props with these like royal purple solid flags just cranking out drop spins. Like, just so cool. And then they get into real choreo and then they all lay down at the end. And the show is just incredible. The costuming and the setup is so simple, but utterly effective. They're just in black unitards that are cut a little differently on each performer. Some are long sleeves, some are tanks, some have a cutout in the back, some have like a halter top, just all sorts of different. But it's just a simple black unitard, kind of a marbled beige floor with some heavy curtain props. And what I really love about this show is that it feels like it's in 4 separate acts that blend together so beautifully. Like the first act, they don't move from those drill spots for the entire first section of the show. If you watch it, they move around like within their dot, with like how body will take them from over here to over here, but they basically stay in their drill spot for the first quarter of the show. Then we get into the second section, which has the movement feature, which is incredible. I love it because it's not the expected movement compared to what you're hearing in the soundtrack. I just love the juxtaposition of the music and the body. It's like these don't go together, but it works so well. I just love it. Then you get into the third section, which is where you have the constant looping through the props. So you have the performers that are going from left to right that are spinning or doing something. You have that one homegirl that has twirl on the flag, like her life depends on it, and then she accidentally drops. But she gets right back up with a great recovery. But she is just spinning that thing, looks like a propeller on an airplane. And then you have the performers running across the front from right to left to kind of keep that cycle going. And then, as we mentioned, it leads into homegirl who's tired and then just kind of flops on the floor right at the big swell, the big crescendo, the big, apex point of the music. And she's just, I'm just going to lay here. It is amazing. I need to shut up because I can talk about this one for hours. But anyone who was there knows how powerful and amazing the show was. And the ending is just pure icon territory. I mean, that ending from when she lays down to the end is what cements it on this list. How are we doing so far? What do we think? Do we think I know what I'm talking about, or am I just kind of pulling things out of my butt? All right, number 6. I know some people are not gonna like this one, but I don't care. It's my list, so I'm picking it. You make your own list. So we're gonna jump from Center Grove 1997, and we are going to jump 25 years forward and come to AMP 2022. Why So Serious? The Joker Show. Now, I know this is a newer show, and generally you kind of have to be around for a while to hit icon status and all that. But this show had the entire activity by the throat, and we were all captivated. I mean, when we got to Dayton, they were the talk of the activity, especially after their prelims run, and some of the guards got to see them in prelims. Their semifinals run, that gym was packed. And usually world semis is kind of full. They had such an amazing crowd for semis because they were the talk of WGI. They were the talk of Dayton that year. We were coming out of COVID, and, prior to that, AMP was already making a name for themselves and kind of carving their niche into the independent world field, kind of as a guard that took entertainment seriously as part of their show design. I'm not saying it was their focus, but when the design team is sitting down, they clearly kind of look at, okay, here's what we want to do, but how can we also make it fun and engaging and get the crowd involved, which I am here for. Trust and believe. But we were coming out of COVID, and this show just kind of gave everybody what they needed. I mean, it was a huge burst of fun and excitement. And then on top of it, just being a very well designed show. And it was just, it was them really just kind of stamping their name on the activity and saying, this is who we are. We're not backing down from this. And if you go prior to COVID, you can see they were already heading that direction. I mean, 2019, they did the vampire show with the coffins and all that, which was a cool take on a theme we'd already seen before, but they had like the fun and kind of the quirky take on it. Now, 22 with Why So Serious is where they went like full throttle. We all know, we've seen the show 4,000 times. We all know, but I think they had everybody as soon as you hit that little front block section and you had the dancers that were down on their hands and their feet and they were bouncing back and forth from each foot. I think that's when they truly had everybody locked in at this show. I got to see it live, and just the video does nothing. There, you cannot compare. I mean, I got to watch it live at one of the regionals, and I was just like, wow, this is absolutely incredible. This is amazing. And people still talk about it to this day. Another thing I loved about it, and I think that's important about it, is that it sparked a new trend in color guard, showing that you can be entertaining and successful, which generally didn't happen. You could do either, but not both. So, you could be the fun guard, but you weren't going to place well. Or you could be the one that was more focused on the score sheets, doing what the judges want, but leaving the fun behind so you would place higher. Now, there's always outliers. Let's review. But this really just kind of reiterated or really kind of hit home to people that, look, you can be fun and entertaining and successful at the same time. You don't have to have a stuffy, dry show that people don't want to get engaged in. I mean, people are always going to cheer for the spinners, right? We love seeing the big tosses. We love seeing the fun tricks. But I mean, AMP puts on a show from start to finish. And we've seen it many, many years. I mean, we have the Why So Serious, and you have Alice in Wonderland. Then you had the Coven show, which unfortunately they didn't get to perform at finals. And then you had the Disco Forever, which was, I mean, you want to talk entertainment. Come on. Come on. Even some of you stuffy old queens that are like, I don't like that. Like, you love that show. You know you love that show. But it also got other color guards to start to join in on the fun and entertainment side. And, you look at guards like Vox Ardium, you have another guard that kind of looks at it a different way, and they're including entertainment within their design process. And the other thing about this show that I think really kind of cements it into icon status is it really sparked social media followings. And I think a lot of guards really started leaning into their social media accounts after this because AMP was very good about this. And if you go to the next year with Alice in Wonderland, they do their weekend wrap up little vids that, they post every week so you can see what they're doing. And by the time you got to Dayton, people knew their dance breaks. They knew everything about the show because they had such a massive following. And that should tell you something. I mean, this guard that is putting out these fun, entertaining, get the crowd involved, get the kids involved shows has a huge following on social media. And then the kids get to Dayton and they already know the dance break and they're doing the moves in the audience with AMP while they're performing. I mean, you cannot deny the impact that has on the activity. So, icon status. Yeah, sorry about it. If you don't think it's that iconic, I don't care. I do. I still love you though. Okay, we are entering the top 5. Now, let's do a quick recap. So, at number 10, we had Aimachi 2004. At number 9, we had Miamisburg 1991. At number 8, we had Escapade 1993. At 7th, we had Center Grove 1997. And at 6th place, we just talked about them, AMP 2022. So we are entering top 5 territory. And I kind of knew which ones were going to be in the top 5. I mean, let's be real, I knew which were going to be 1 and 2, but ordering them has been a little tricky. And I really kind of sat down and thought about all the little things on them and the little nuances, the little effects on the activity or whatnot. So here we go. Coming in at number 5, Chimera's Winter Guard 1999, Time to Say Goodbye. Now, some of you may not recognize this show by name, and you like, well, what the hell who is he talking about? Chimeras? Who the hell is that? But you've probably seen this show in the clips. They were from Murfreesboro, Tennessee, and they had the all white floor and costuming, and they had the white props, and the show kept adding color throughout the entire show. Remember, they pulled out these panels that were kind of like rainbow colored and had words on them. And then they started coming out in different color uniforms. They were like probably like crushed velvet unitards. Somebody was in a blue one, then a green one, then a red one, until we get to rainbow at the end. And the floor is covered in rainbow panels with words on them. That's the show I'm talking about. You've seen it, you've seen the clips. This is what I'm talking about. Just the visual of the show is absolutely amazing and utterly iconic. And I think it was like 7th or something. I don't remember its exact placement, but it made the fan favorites. It made all the highlight reels. It was everywhere. And what I love about the show is they pull out these panels and, they had words written on them, but then they would grab it midway through. So they'd pull out like 10 feet of panel across the floor and it would say, homophobia on it. I think it's one of them ones that they pull out. But then they reach halfway through and keep pulling it, and then it reads "Home of the Brave," right? So they had all these sayings that I think usually went from negative to positive, but it ended up covering the entire floor except for one square in all these rainbow shades, and it was utterly beautiful. And the way the show was done, I mean, it would come out in shades of blue, and then they had like a red section, and then the greens would come out. It was done so well. And at the very end, they still had 2 performers in white that were in the little white square while the flag feature's going on. They're doing sit rolls under tosses. I mean, kind of ahead of its time. Just a great, great show. But it's the imagery of this one that makes it so iconic. It's one of those shows you see and you're like, I know that show. I've seen it in the highlight reels. It is beautiful. It is amazing. And then at the end of the show, they pull all the panels in. They were like on reels that they could like crank really quick, and they all disappear from the floor. And the video quality unfortunately isn't that great, but if you can look well enough, you can see that there's a white panel left on the floor with some words on it, and the show ends in all white. It is utterly gorgeous. I love it, and I think it just stands out of being such an iconic show and an incredibly memorable one. It's out on YouTube. definitely go check it out. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend. It is absolutely incredible. It is beautiful. I keep repeating myself, but I mean, it's worth repeating. Let's move on to number 4. Alliance of Miami, 1997, with their Gypsy Caravan Show. Now, Alliance of Miami is unfortunately no longer around. They were a world program for years, down, obviously based out of Miami. And many of you know that Latrice Royale, the famous drag queen from RuPaul's Drag Race, marched Alliance of Miami as well in 1994. Latrice is not in this show, but just for some perspective of who we're talking about. And Alliance of Miami has put out numerous memorable shows. I mean, they were kind of one of those guards that kind of just put out fun, interesting kind of shows without going like the artistic route of it. And that's not shade by any means. When I say artistic, I'm thinking like, the more abstract kind of thought-provoking kind of shows. No, they kind of found a theme and would go with it. And this is a perfect example of that with the Gypsy Caravan. With all their memorable shows, this one to me just stood out above the rest. I mean, just the sight of those caravan props alone gets everyone excited. And the way they move around the floor, because, if you haven't seen the show, again, it's on YouTube. I think all of these are on YouTube. So I highly recommend go watching if you have not seen them. But the caravan pieces move around the floor and they're like a clown car. There's like 10 performers in each one. And and they just keep coming out. And the soundtrack is awesome. I mean, they use Pat Metheny, which was a classic in Color Guard Land back in the day. You had Pat Metheny, Carl Jenkins. Everybody seemed to use First Circle for some reason. Those were like the song, and Philip Glass. Like those four kind of covered half of WGI for so many years. But you have the slow opening, where they're kind of setting the mood into the clown car realness, I'm calling it, where everybody comes running out. And then the opening flags have a sun on them to represent the coming out during the day. Then you get to the midsection of the show where there is no soundtrack and they pull out drums and tambourines, and the performers provide the soundtrack themselves just to a beat and the jingle of the tambourines. They're spinning the guns and they're hitting the end of the gun on the tambourine as they catch and doing all these cool things. And then they go into the final section right before the flag feature. They have a soloist comes out, throws a sky-high flag toss, does a backflip under it and catches it. And then these flags with moons on them come out for the nighttime, like they're going crazy at night. And they're spinning on top of the caravan cars and they're spinning on the floor and they're running around. It is amazing. And just the theming and the production value and the costuming is just so, so good. And that's what makes this one iconic. And unfortunately, I just couldn't put it any higher because of the other three. But this one and the next one, I did flip flop a little bit. So when we get to number 3, maybe you think that should have been number 4. We'll see. But Alliance of Miami, amazing program, put out amazing shows. I highly recommend you go watch this one. I just recently put a reel of this one on the Instagram page for the podcast because I just love it. And I love to highlight all of these wonderful shows. Top 3. We've made it to top 3. Are you ready? Can you believe it? Here we go. Number 3. Who do you think it is? Any guesses? Nope, you're wrong. Ooh, you might be right. We have Blessed Sacrament, 1989. Now, this show is often mentioned as one of the best shows of all WGI history. This show changed the sport in a way that no other did, and many people were utterly shocked it didn't win. They came in second to State Street Review, and it was only a few tenths. They were not far off from first. But I've had many people tell me that they announced Blessed Sacrament in second, and they got like a 5 or 6 minute standing ovation during awards. Like they couldn't award the gold medal because people would not stop cheering for Blessed Sacrament. So even though they were second, they had clearly won the audience over. This show is 35 years old, and people still, to this day, revere it as one of the best shows ever in all of WGI's history. So we talk about this show, and I put it in the number 3 spot because I think it has one of the most iconic like clips or images that we've seen throughout WGI history. But I also put it at number 3 because of just the sheer impact it had on the activity as a whole. So, the iconic moment I'm talking about is the all white flag feature. There is spinning in that rotating block that's rotating counterclockwise as they come down right on the 50. You've seen it. You trust me, you've seen it. It is an amazing moment. Like that's one of the most iconic moments, like little clips that WGI has always used. Like every fan favorite, every DVD, like it was always included. This clip was always included. And we talk about how it changed the activity. You have to remember at the time in the late 80s, this is 89, the activity for the most part was all like high energy, fast, and showy soundtracks and in your face shows. Like they were adrenaline rushes and like in your face, right? People didn't really do subdued and lyrical and emotional. I mean, there were some here or there, but they were never really successful. The successful groups were like the 80s synth, electronica kind of over the top Broadway production style shows. And Blessed Sacrament even had their whole rock with sack era. Like they were known for putting out these high energy in your face shows. So Sack busts out this lyrical show using Gordon Lightfoot for the music and put on one of the most musical productions the sport had ever seen. It was soft, it was emotional, and it was utterly captivating. I mean, you talk to anybody who saw this show live, and they all say the same thing. They say chills, they say just the emotion, it brought tears to their eyes. I mean, you talk to anybody that marched in this era, and they will not shut up about the impact this show had on them. And I say that in a loving way, and saying that they won't shut up about it because they can just gush about it forever because of how much it meant to them. And the show basically kind of pushed the sport of color guard into the world of staging rather than drill. Today, we still reference it as our drill, right? But today we stage shows, right? When you watch old color guard, they're doing think like traditional old school marching band drill, right? They're very clear formations, straight lines. They're doing gate turns, and the drill was part of the production. And many of these shows had like a drill feature, it was very militaristic, still kind of connected to the roots of how the sport got its whole start. With this show, transitions and formations were just different. And rather than the traditional formations that were commonplace, and we talk about that flag feature, kind of taking a different spin on what a traditional thing was. Instead of the entire group moving in a straight line and everybody leaving the floor, they would pull one performer off at a time and like ripple off, and they would move over here, and everything just kind of flowed around. And when you watch it, it's like watching a show from today with the staging. Obviously, it's from 1989, so obviously we're doing trickier and crazier things, but their weapon line is throwing double turns in this, like 5 double turns. Don't remember, this is Blessed Sacrament. These people know how to spin a weapon. The running joke, they're born with a saber in their hand. They come out of the womb spinning a saber. They know how to spin. Just for the sheer impact this had on the activity, I had to put it at number 3. That's what gave it the edge over Alliance of Miami. Alliance of Miami, I think, is more iconic just visually. Like you look at it and you're like, wow, that's so cool. But when you just take in the whole thing and kind of what it's done to the activity, I had to put it at number 3. We have made it to the top 2. And if you're a pretty knowledgeable fan of color guard, you have a good idea of who the top 2 are. But who did I pick as number 1? What order did I put them in? What do you think? Before we get into that, let's do a couple of honorable mentions. And I'm going to do it here because everyone knows the top 2. And I have to keep a little suspense here, right? I can't announce number 2 and then do the honorable mentions because you know who number 1 is. I mean, unless I pull something totally out of left field, which, okay, I didn't. But, if I did, if I really wanted to engagement farm and put somebody completely wackadoodle at number 1, I could. But no, I tried to stay true here. So let's talk honorable mentions. I have 2 of them. My first is James Logan High School 2001 with their Immortal Captive show. Now, James Logan won Scholastic World for 10 years straight. And this was their fourth year winning Scholastic World. And this just cemented their dominance and stranglehold on Scholastic World. I mean, they 4-pointed second place in 2001. I mean, 4 points. That's the Grand Canyon in color guard scoring, right? You have guards that win by tenths or hundreds. They won by 4 whole points. Like that's like lapping the entire field in the 800 meters. Like just insane. But it also cemented their new style of infusing hip hop and kind of urban pop current music into their shows. Like they'd found their niche, they'd found their style, and they would use that for the next few years until they kind of, kind of readjusted their style. But I mean, for 4 or 5 years, this is what they were doing. They were doing the hip hop, they were doing the pop music. I mean, they were taking current songs and weaving it with old traditional music. They took the opera Carmen and weaved it with Justin Timberlake. And then they did a whole boxing show and they had Rocky theme, but then they had Missy Elliott and they had Britney Spears. And I mean, it's just, they had Beastie Boys. I mean, and they were winning and crushing everybody. So I picked 2001 because that was the moment where they truly defined who they were as a color guard. And the show is absolutely amazing. And there are so many little nuggets to pick up on the show. If you want to talk about any of these shows, shoot me a message and we can chat about them because all of these shows I could go on for hours and I'm not going to. My second honorable mention is going to Onyx 2014 for Moving Still. Now, this is kind of like Imachi, where I'm kind of picking this as a collection of years, and I'm just choosing this one to be the representative. But this one is more for the impact on the activity rather than the show itself. Because let's be real, Onyx 2010 to 2015, all the years kind of blend together, right? I mean, let's be real. I love you and you're amazing people, but the shows are kind of similar. But Onyx had developed this new minimalist artistic approach and style and it brought them to the top of the sport and it kept them there for many years. Obviously they won in 2014 and I think they won 2010. I think they won all the even years, 2010, 2012, 2014. And 2014 has that lift that we all still talk about, right? The 3-person lift where you have the person, the dancer, and the flag, and they're all spinning around. It's super cool. If you haven't seen it, it's super cool. I don't even know how they figured this out and how they got the people to do this, but I digress. But this style took a stranglehold onto the activity, and you saw a lot of guards start to copy and emulate this style, especially in the lower class levels. I cannot tell you the amount of A and regional A guards I saw trying to be Onyx. I mean, they created a shift in the activity, and that's why I wanted to include them as an honorable mention. I couldn't include them on the list because the shows themselves don't stand out enough, but I think their impact warrants an honorable mention. Okay, top 2. Here we go. It is down to the wire. And this is another one that I flip-flopped on, number 2, number 1, who do I put where? Because if you've been with me for a while and you know kind of my conversations with people, you know which 2 guards are going to be at the top, which 2 shows are at the top. And I went back and forth, and for number 2, I have Bishop Kearney High School, 1996, The Jackson Pollock Show. Now, if you don't know what show I'm talking about because you don't recognize the name, it's the paint show. It's the show where the girls are chucking the paint all over the place. And I did a whole episode where I talked to a lovely, lovely woman who marched the show. Her name is Alicia Ray. There's an episode where you can go and listen to her talk about her years at Bishop Kearney and get all sorts of fun behind the scenes about many of these years. And she marched in this show. There's lots of fun facts and fun stories about the paint show. If you haven't already, go check that out. But let's talk about this show. It was 1996, Scholastic World. This was Bishop Kearney's 5th year in a row winning. I think they won 93, 94, 95, 90. It was their 4th year. Sorry. I'm counting on my fingers as I record to you. They used the piece New Era Dance, which is kind of funny because Center Grove High School, who came in second, also used New Era Dance, but they had a lot of voiceovers of interviews with Jackson Pollock and talking about his paint style. And I mean, this one has to be at the top of the list, or next to the top of the list because of we've all seen this. We all know the show. We've all seen the paint just flying everywhere. And everybody's like, that is so iconic. We see it and we're like, oh my God, it's amazing. Those girls are throwing their paint. How did they not fall? Was it real paint? I mean, this show sparked so many questions that a lot of them were answered in that episode. Go check it out. And people just, they want to know more. They want to see more. They're like, oh my God, did you see that? Oh, they're throwing paint over here. They're throwing paint over there. Now they're spinning. And it's just, and then you have the Bishop Carney hair and the Bishop Carney weapons and their catches, and it just all kind of comes together and just creates this iconic visual piece that we don't forget. It's absolutely incredible. And as I mentioned with Blessed Sacrament and that white flag feature, the paint being thrown everywhere has always been in the WGI clips. It's always been in the little reels and the little highlight doodads they'll put up on the big screen at Dayton, when they're talking about color guard history, they're always there. It's always there. You really can't get more iconic than this. I mean, technically you can because I put this at number 2. But this one, the deciding factor on this one that really kind of well, I'll tell you when we get to number 1. I'm going to save it for number 1 so I can tell you why I picked this for number 2 over number 1. I'm just kind of laughing at myself here because I just don't really know what else to say. I mean, we've all seen it and you know why it's so iconic. And it's just, yeah, it's going to remain there in WGI history until somebody comes out and does something completely crazy to dethrone it. So, Bishop Carney, number 2, 1996, Jackson Pollock. So, that brings us to number 1. And yes, you've probably guessed it. If you haven't, do you even know the sport of color guard? Say it with me at number 1, Northmont High School, 1997, Dante's Inferno. Yes, the Dante's Inferno show. How could this not be number 1 for the most iconic show in WGI history? And, it was almost number 2, I will be honest. I was going back and forth on this, and I was trying to decide, what do I put at number 1 and what do I put at number 2? And I ultimately decided on putting this one at number 1 simply due to the amount of people, especially today, that talk about how much they love this show. You can go to YouTube right now and pull up this show and see hundreds of comments. I mean, hundreds of comments from people talking about this show and how much they love, 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 love this show. And it's the most instantly recognizable show in all of WGI. I mean, you need one frame and you can recognize this show. And everybody's seen it all the way through. We know so many things about it. And that was kind of the other deciding factor when I was looking at who was be number 1. With the Jackson Pollock show at number 2, the ending goes crazy. I think their ending beats out any other show. But when you look at the show as a whole, I mean, the Dante's Inferno show from start to finish has you sucked in. The soundtrack is amazing. The setup is amazing. They hang the performer on the floor, and you have the devil come out, and they're ripping the flesh off the performers, and they have like these meat hook things. I mean, just you want to talk production value and just like hammering a theme home. Then you have the soundtrack, which is taken from horror films and all the voiceovers. And then you have, I think it's Rob Zombie at the end. It might be White Zombie. I don't remember. But you have that heavy metal come in at the end. Just like, wow. I mean, so, so, so iconic and so memorable. And this is, everybody's just loves this show. And like I said, go to YouTube and look at the comments. That's kind of what helped me make that decision. They cemented themselves as probably the most memorable show in WGI history. And as I mentioned with Bishop Carney, I don't know if this will ever get dethroned. I don't know if anybody can pull off anything wild enough to dethrone this one. Because you also have to look at the times we're in now. I don't think you could pull out a show like this in today's climate, in our cultural climate. I just don't think you could. Everybody's looking to cancel somebody for some reason. Towing that line of, especially with religion, and we look at different areas of the country and how different areas might respond. And many of our Scholastic World Guards are from the Indianapolis area, that Rust Belt area, that Mid East, where it is a little more conservative and might be a little more pearl clutchy, so to speak. But I hope I'm wrong. I would love for somebody to come out and kind of blow our socks off with just something totally off the wall. It doesn't have to be dark. It doesn't have to be spooky, but I would just love something like the Jackson Pollock show or like this show to kind of come out and be like, whoa, because we haven't had a show like that in a long time. We have AMP recently that I included, but I mean, outside of them, I mean, especially post COVID, we've had amazing shows. I mean, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying we haven't had great shows, but we haven't had a Dante's Inferno level show or a Jackson Pollock level show where it's just like, whoa, oh my God, like, can you believe this? So there you have it. Number one, Northmont High School, Dante's Inferno. Is that what you expected? I hope it was because, I mean, honestly, one and two, I think were kind of cemented up there and, it took a little thinking, but I think I got it right. Let me know if you agree or disagree. I hope you agree with my list. I'm sure I picked one or two that you don't agree with, and I'm sure I missed one or two that you think should have been on the list. Reach out to me. Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. But that's going to wrap up this list, and that's going to wrap up this episode. I'll be back in a couple weeks with another episode, and we are getting ready for regional season. I'm going to be covering the Flow regionals like I did last year, where I'll be doing recaps. So if you don't get a chance to watch it, you can find out what people are doing and get my opinions on it at the same time. And they were hugely successful last year. A lot of people listened to them and they were very thankful for comments, just especially in the early stages when people are putting shows out. They want to make sure their themes and their concepts are being perceived and being recognized. And, I had a couple guards that were like, oh, he gets our show. Great. That means we're doing something right, especially if I'm getting your show because I'm hard headed and stupid. Sometimes I've said it before. Sometimes you have to hit me over the head with a hammer with your concept or I'm not getting it. I don't do well with these vague, abstract shows. Like, I'm the person in the audience, like, I don't get it. They spin lovely. They spin beautifully. They have great tricks. Their flags are gorgeous, but I have no idea what the hell the show is about. That's me. But I will be doing those. So I will be churning out weekly episodes on those. I'm going to try to keep those shorter, but we do have some big regionals. So I won't get to cover everybody, especially at those big regionals, because daddy just ain't got all the time. I have a 9 to 5. I have kids. I gotta sleep at some point. So and I will be at the India Regional at the end of February, February 21st, 22nd. I will be there. If you are going to the India Regional, if you're performing or just going to watch, I would love to meet you. I would love to interact with any of you, whatever. I am happy to meet any listeners. So hope you all have a wonderful and safe new year. I hope you're excited about the competitive season about to start. I know Florida premieres in a couple of weeks, Georgia premieres in a couple of weeks. We have show announcements that are starting to come out, which is so exciting. So, yeah, I'm very excited about this. I will be back in 2 weeks with another episode. So, until then, stay safe, stay fabulous, and remember, at the end of the day, it's just flags in a gym.